Welcome to another episode of Tech Lounge, a podcast where we discuss the ever-changing world of technology. And now your host, Dan Duran.
Hey. What's up, guys?
Hey, guys. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Dan. Hi, Andrew.
Hello,
Hey, guys.
everybody. My name is Dan Duran, and I'm your host here at the Tech Lounge. We discuss topics related to business, leadership, technology, and today, web security. Welcome to the show, number 20 this year.
Woo!
20. So we're going to have 21 shows this year. Next Friday is going to be our Christmas special, right? Before we go into vacation. So, yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. And Happy Hanukkah or whatever it is that you celebrate. And remember, we stream live every Friday on YouTube and 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find us. We also are on podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Podbean. So everywhere, basically. How's that?
That's
Especially
wonderful.
that link book.
That link book. You remember that link book?
Yes.
Thanks, Gladstone.
And link
Throwing
book.
me under the bus.
And hopefully in the future, near future, Meta in Donald Trump's social media, which I don't remember what it is,
I don't know.
whatever it is.
honest media or something. I'm not sure how honest. But I don't know.
Ironic.
Hey guys, so we
Ironic.
love you guys, and so please make sure you follow us using the hashtag #DanDuran and watch us live every Friday. So sit back and relax. This, of course, is the Tech Lounge. All right, so OWASP 10.
Absolutely.
It is a very important topic. All right. And a lot of people don't know this. So let me just share my screen with you so we can start looking into the OWASP 10. And I see that, oh no, my video is frozen. Am I frozen?
Yeah, I was just about to tell you you're frozen, Dan. I was going to tell you offline, but now that you are definitely frozen.
I'm 100% frozen right now.
You are
Technology
frozen.
difficulties. You are frozen.
Can you hear me though?
We
Loud
can't
and
hear
clear.
you.
Oh man. Okay. That's not good. Okay. So how do I do this? Hold on. Okay.
You know what? This is a technology show. Everybody out there watching, this is a technology show. And as you all know, being in and out of services like this can happen. So please bear with us and our technical difficulties.
Yes.
I'm back.
Well,
You are
while
not
you
back.
figure that out, Dan, I'll just read some of the interactions with our audience here.
That's perfect.
Absolutely. Please.
All right. So Tamara, this stalker here, she's back.
We know Tamara. Hi, Tamara.
Hello, Tamara. You know I say that with love. Nice to see you again. We also have Kai. Kai, good afternoon, Kai. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yes.
I see Dan's back.
Dan,
Woo-hoo! I'm back, man. I'm back, baby.
awesome. This is the 20th show. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks,
Top
Thank
10
Tamara.
on the 20th.
And I think Tamara's been at all 20, so we really appreciate that support.
I know. We need to give her some kind of certificate or something for 10
Exactly.
minutes of the show. Kevin Pham says, hi. What's up, my friend Kevin? Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your support. And my good friend Alexis Ramirez. How are you, sir? Diego says, hello.
Hey, guys.
And
So,
Doris says, hello.
so
Beautiful.
I have a little contest for everybody out there. If you tell me what OWASP means, I'll give you a gift card. $10. $10 gift
Can I
card.
play? Can I
If you
play? Can
tell
I
me-
play?
No, you can't not play.
What
What is OWASP? What does it mean? What does stand? What
So,
does it stand
audience,
for?
please post your response
Please
in the
post
chat if you know it.
First,
And don't Google it, guys. Come on now.
let's say they say that's the new education system. If you
That's-
can Google, you know everything.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
You can ask
OWASP.
Alexis or whatever
first
too,
one.
right?
The first one who tells me what OWASP means is going to get a
$10
$10
And little gift
gift
card.
certificate for Christmas. I'm feeling
on.
generous today. So
What?
Merry Christmas,
Oh,
everybody.
we got one. Let's post
Uh-oh.
it. What does it say? What did I see?
All
It's
right.
posted.
So Kai says the Open Web Application Security Project.
Woo, woo.
Woohoo!
Got a
Well done.
winner.
Amazing.
And Kai, I know
Anyway.
you didn't Google that, right? So You're
No,
in
of
good
course
shape.
it didn't. He's a cybersecurity analyst anyway, so
For
he knows
sure.
exactly what we're talking about
Did,
here.
hey,
So thank you for
post
joining us.
Tamara's.
And
I like
Tamara
Tamara's.
says, when you see a nasty looking wasp flying around you, say, oh, wasp. Very
It's
lucky.
it's a
Very
it's a
Oh,
lucky.
wasp
wasp.
from Ontario, so it's an
There
Ontario
you go.
wasp.
Not a
So
murder hornet, but wasp. Get it right.
yeah, so the OWASP project is being there for actually quite a while, right? And basically, it's a whole bunch of really smart people that are concerned about web security, right?
Yes.
So, and what they do
Globally.
is they get together globally. This is global, absolutely. They get together with different associations and different other smart people, and they come out with the top 10 vulnerabilities that happen in the world of web development, right? And they usually update those vulnerabilities. So the last update was in 2017. Sorry, the last update is 2021, right? But the one before was 2017. So they have upgraded their top 10 vulnerabilities in the world of vulnerabilities. There's so many out there, but they actually group them and classify them under one umbrella, and they give it to the world, right? So, and there's a whole bunch of partners. So if I go here, you can see my screen. If I go to the last bit of this page, which is quite a bit. These are all the partners. We have AppSec Labs, we have Cobalt, we have Constant Security, GitLab, HackerOne, HC. HackerOne is a good one that I use quite a bit. Their academy is really good. HCL Technologies, Microfocus, and so on. Right. So these are all the partners, and what they do is they, through their tools, so their web tools, their cybersecurity vulnerability assessments, penetration tests, they have a lot of data, right? So of vulnerabilities that are happening, and then they give to the OWASP all of this data. So like probably hundreds of thousands of data points on what the main vulnerabilities they found on the clients, and that's how the OWASP project creates the top 10. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it changes, on a regular basis, because it's technology is always changing, and cyber risks are always changing. So
absolutely, and you can see, for example, 2017, the main number one concern was injection. So SQL injection was one of the main things, and that in 2021 got dropped to third place, right? So now injection is third place, and you know what? I gotta say the reason for this is all the stuff that we've been doing in technology, how technology has advanced in terms of web firewalls, for example, web application firewalls like Cloudflare and things like that are able to stop SQL injections and that kind of stuff, and not just SQL injections, but for example, cross-site scripting, and stuff. Oh, actually, you know what? Where's cross-site scripting here? It went from 7 to
where is it?
3. Oh, yeah, they mixed it. See how these guys are really smart. So what they did is, like, in injection, they mixed it with cross-site scripting, and they're just calling it injection. Because cross-site scripting is a form of injection in the source code, right? So on either a UI or like a permanent or temporary inside of the DOM, etc. So it is a form of injection. You're just not injecting the database, but you're injecting the code on the front side, right? So that's, they mix it together, I guess, right? So shall we start talking? Like, do we got any other love? Is there anybody else that is saying hi and stuff?
Yeah, we went through it already, Dan. Well, looks like we're getting some more.
Yeah, we get some more. Absolutely, yeah.
Look at that. It's almost like we planned this. Good afternoon, Adrian. Thanks for joining us, buddy. Adrian's a really fun guy, by the way. Just thought I'd put that out there.
All right. So we're going to talk about the 10. We're not going to go really in depth into what they are.
But I think, Dan, can we just, I know we jumped right into it because you froze, but we forgot to, you know what? Thank you so much, Gladstone, for joining us. I know you were with us last week, and there was a couple weeks you missed out. So we wanted to, basically just bring to everybody's attention, Gladstone's back in the house. So G Money. So thank you so much for joining us. You got your G Money hat on. I love it.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us again today, bud.
Anytime, guys. Anytime.
Yes. So thank you for being here, Gladstone. We appreciate all your help And I know you're very proficient on these security stuff, especially from the development side, because you're the our senior project manager at BWire. So all of our staff is very secure conscious, right?
Yes, sir. And I'm sure I'm going to learn a few things today, right? Because learning never stops. So, having said
Yeah.
that, guys, let's move on to the first item on our list. Are
What
you
is
ready?
the first item?
All right. Broken access control.
All
Dan.
right, broken access control, guys. This is very fundamental. If I'm logging in to an application as a registered user, I shouldn't be seeing other people's information. I shouldn't be seeing other registered users' information. Correct? And but what if an attacker actually is able to go in as a registered user and see other people's information, and not only that, but escalate it to an admin? So do a privilege escalation attacks, and then being able to see what an admin would see. So that's what we're talking about. That's broken access control. Sometimes when we do penetration tests for our clients, what happens is that we can see data for users in plain sight on the public. That is just nuts. So, and the way we do it is basically through manipulating the URLs. For example, you manipulate the URLs and you try to interact with the UI, and then all of a sudden, boom, there is information from a client. And then if we start going through pages and stuff like that, they're not doing a very good sanitization of the URLs. I go page 1, page 2, page 3, or user 1, user 2, user 3, and we're able to see the data on plain sight for the public. That is really bad.
So Dan, how does a client or a company that has this as a concern, I mean, they don't know if it's actually happening, how do they rectify it? How do they verify that it's actually happening and fix it?
Yeah, so the first thing is you have to sterilize your URLs, right? So if in the database, you have a correlation or the serializing of entities, right, or IDs. So you have ID 1, ID 2, ID 3, and as soon as you create one ID, and it starts to serialize that, right? So same with pages, right? So page 1, page 2, page 3, user 1, user 2, user 3. If I'm displaying that on the URL, it's easier for the hacker to go in and try to decompose that and then jump from vertical jump from one URL to the URL from one user to the second user. So the first, you need to take into account the serialization, or making sure that the URL is anonymous, so, or randomized, right? So that's one of the things. The other things is that you need to have the correct permissions on the backend. So when anybody tries to see public or private information, so that is beyond inside of the web portal, it's not accessible through the public, right? So those are key things that any developer should take into account, right?
Absolutely.
So deny access to the functionality, right? So by default. So basically what I'm saying is, like, when you're constructing the code, when you're developing your code, server side both and application side, you should deny access to everybody by default to the let's say it's an admin portal. So all they can see is just the login page, username and password. But by default, any other URL is denied. And then you work backwards into creating the roles and access points and user access and all of that. Does that make sense?
It does. But question for you. So let's say I'm a company and I had my project created a year ago or 2 years ago, and now this is being brought to my attention. What would I do as a company then? Do I have to go back to the developer to look into this? Do I hire a cybersecurity company to make sure I don't have these vulnerabilities, et cetera? Like, what does that look like as a company?
Well, the first step is you need to do an assessment, right? Either a web vulnerability assessment, a penetration test. So for that, you hire a company like Rhino Cybersecurity, right? So to do the assessment, and then out of that, we're going to be able to find those vulnerabilities, and then we give it to the client, and then the client goes to their developers and they create a better functionality for their their web applications, right?
Beautiful, beautiful.
All right, so I think we have enough with number one. Guys, I want to open up the forum. So if you guys want to ask any questions about OWASP or anything that has to do with web security, anything, make sure you post it, and we'll be happy to display it and answer any of your questions.
All right.
Anything else? Anything in the
Looks like
pipeline?
we got a question here.
All right.
From-
Okay.
From Tamara. So Tamara asks, should developers audit servers and websites to see who is doing what, when, etc.?
Oh, that's a good question. So, what do you think, Gladstone?
Of course. This should be done regularly because, as you know, with technology, it's constantly evolving and advancing. And hackers, typically they don't sleep, right? They're always at it trying to hack things. So it's essential that we're doing regular penetration tests, as you mentioned, and audits as well. And that should be happening frequently to make sure that everything is up to date. And another good practice is, when you're actually, picking a development company to work on your website, you should actually ask them about maintenance. Are they going to be doing regular maintenance and updating plugins and modules to ensure that there isn't any outdated technology that can be used to exploit your site? So yes, to answer your question, this should happen, and it should happen frequently.
Yes, and the other thing is that it's the developer. The developer needs to be security conscious.
Exactly.
Right?
I was going to say
So,
that.
what I mean by that is they should have the necessary training on basic security, or not basic, but intermediate, even advanced security standards for web development. So what I'm saying is, like, okay, so if I need to put a service on the server, and make sure I want to make sure that the ports that I'm opening and the service that I'm providing is not a vulnerable type of service, because then you're gonna get hacked, right? The libraries that I'm using, are those libraries good? Are they continually maintained, or are they obsolete? Do they have security holes? When you're developing, you use a lot of libraries, for example, you need to make sure that you have secure libraries. The other thing is the architecture. So your design patterns, when you're doing your code and your functionality, are those design patterns conducive to security, or are they all over the place? Like, you need to make sure that those security things are right at the beginning of the process, and that avoids a lot of problems out there. So yeah,
and
that's
that's
a really
really
good.
it is a great question. And I think that's really important for you as the developers out there to make sure that you become more familiar with the security aspects, because it's only advancing more and more. And then you as a company, those are one of the fundamental things you should be asking when hiring a development team. Do they have that skill set? So it's a twofold. Developers, get yourself more up to speed and more knowledgeable, and continue to hone those skills. And as a company, make sure you're asking those questions when you're hiring a developer.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a question from Diego in there as well. Do you want to pose that question on online?
Certainly. So Diego says, what does OWASP application security verification standard projects include?
Yeah. So one of the I like this question because we're getting into more of the meat and potatoes of the OWASP. So the OWASP is not just kind of like a top 10 thing that the people come up with, but they have these standards, right? So they have a big book, and I think it's volume 4 right now, 4 point something. I don't know, 2021 they're coming out with a new one probably, but it actually outlines very clearly what you need to do. All the standards of development are clearly formatted on the book. How to manage the functionality, how to create like, it goes very granular into everything that you need to do, right? So it's not just an association or a group of people that are smart and they're putting the top 10 vulnerabilities, but they also have a slew of documentation. Also, they have tools. They have this really cool tool called OWASP Zap. OWASP.
OWASP Zap.
Yeah.
goes
well
together.
Yeah, let me show you real quick. So this is the tool, OWASP Zap, and it's a software application that you can run it on Linux, Windows. Also, it runs on the Windows, Linux, and Mac, right? All three of them, and it is a vulnerability scanner, right? So let me see if I can get to it. It's called the Zap Z project. There you go. The OWASP Z attack proxy. And basically what it is it is a scanner. So when you're doing not just penetration testing, we use this for penetration testing quite a bit, right? To see what are the fundamental flaws of the software application, what kind of vulnerabilities it has. But this is really good for web security. So as soon as you develop code and then you put it and you start doing like you put it on your development server and you can visualize stuff, you can run this tool. Anybody can run it basically. And then you can see the vulnerabilities that come out of it, right? And it's very helpful for developers. So I definitely recommend this to anybody out there. And you can see here, this is just an image that I'm finding here on the web, right? So you do the scan, and then it tells you the vulnerabilities by name and last name, basically, right? So those are really good tools that anybody could use for analysis and seeing whether your code is actually good or not, secure or not secure. That's a help, man. This tech shows are getting more informative for you. So if you're learning something here, we really appreciate. Send us your shout out. Tell us what you think. Ask any questions you want, and we'll be able to attend to you as soon as possible, right here on the screen.
Thank you,
I
Dan.
sound like a recording, like
I was gonna
automated. All right.
Follow us today.
Should we move on to number 2?
Let's do so. So number 2, cryptographic failures.
Okay, so who can tell me what a cryptographic failure is?
Good
Guys,
question.
I'm gonna give another $10 gift card. Another gift card
Wow.
for $10 if you tell me what a cryptographic failure is. Except for Kai. Kai already.
Do you not have it on the
$10.
screen? Do you don't have it on the screen highlighted right there? That's
Oh,
are you not sharing it? Is that kind of like
yeah, but
open
no,
book
this is
test?
Vulnerabilities, huh?
It doesn't
really tell you.
It doesn't really tell you. It's just
okay, perfect.
But if you can tell us what a
so you guys got
cryptographic
30
failure is.
seconds. 30 seconds, starting now.
All right.
All right. Okay, let me explain. We have no winners. All right, so we'll move on. Time is up. Cryptographic failures are usually anything that is, let's say you're using a security certificate that has a null encryption, and you're not moving on to new methods of encryption because like you have all kinds of encryptions out there, and security certificates are definitely very important. But some of those security certificates are old, and they have encrypting methods that already have been cracked, basically. So you can actually use tools, let's say Metasploit or other tools, to bring down the level of security, and then bypass that from HTTPS to HTTP, and then do some sort of brute force attack, right? So, or unauthorized access into an application using malicious code, right? So, so very important. Cryptographic, the actual word cryptographic means, like encoding, hashing a value, right? So, cryptographic failures occur. It's kind of like an umbrella term, but it's a lot of things combined, right? So I'm just giving you one, right? I'm just giving you one.
So Dan, we did get a response. I don't think we quite gave them 30 seconds, but Tamara, Tamara's got a response.
I'm not sure she was right though.
She said screwy algorithms. Does that suffice?
Yes, screwy algorithms, but cryptographic goes or beyond screwy just the algorithms. It's also passwords.
So you get $5, Tamara, not 10.
Yeah,
You got 50% of it.
she
Thanks,
said she
Tamara.
tried.
I think she did a good job. Good job.
Not
Thank you,
bad.
Tamara. Absolutely.
Yeah, so passwords. Like you have an application where you can enter a password and you can create a password, and the password is 111111. Okay, and the application allows you to create or set the password for a user. That's bad design, man. That's really terrible design. So you should have the methodology in there, or the in your algorithm, and where you're setting up your code, making sure that the user cannot enter a soft password. They have to enter over 10 digits, and it has to be combined with capitals and symbols and stuff like that. So the user is forced to create a strong password. And on top of that, if you're smart developer, then you're going to put some sort of dual authentication on it on top of that. So just to make sure that your code and the application is secure. So cryptographic failure it could be just a bad password setup.
Right. Wow.
Right. So it's not just the security certificates that are outdated, but it's anything that has to do with the hashing algorithm. So for accessing applications. Right. So yeah, that's very
Perfect.
important, man.
Wow.
I hope that helped.
Well
Yeah.
said.
Okay. Injection.
As we also, we want to say that Dan is giving a lot of these explanations because he is definitely the technical guru in this room. So I just want to give a shout out to him and his
What am
advice
I,
and his
chocolate
clarity.
right?
No, you know what? You have an incredible skill set, but I just want to give a shout out to Dan because his explanations on this is very, very good and very thorough. So kudos to you. But you are not chopped liver there, Glassman.
Yeah, okay.
You're reading those questions really, really great.
I try. All right.
You and
back
me
to
both.
reading
You and me both.
my items here. Number 3,
Number 3.
Okay. So what is number 3?
injection.
All right, injection. So you see how the OWASP Foundation, they merged anything that's cross-site scripting and SQL injections into one big category called injections. All right. So an injection, if you use the SQL map, for example, tools on Kali Linux or Linux, you can actually get access to databases, right? And that's a really bad thing. If you have access to a database, you can do lots of things: delete, dump, drop, execute all kinds of commands, fill out pages and pages, and create pages of like garbage from the SQL side, from the database side. But also they combine anything that has to do with cross-site scripting. So on the front end, when you're typing URLs, if you're able to execute a command like a JavaScript alert, for example, through using the URL, that is cross-site scripting. And there's 2 types of cross-site scripting, just so everybody, I mean, there's several times, but there's the most important ones, which is the reflective and the non-reflective, right? So the reflective is the one that you can actually change the URL and automatically you're going to be able to do something on there. But it's not permanent. But there's other types of cross-site scripting when you can actually inject stuff, and that's permanent for everybody. So it doesn't matter who you send a URL to, it was always going to be there, right? Okay. And they could be on the URL, they could be on the DOM, right? So both ways. So that's basically injections, right? Nice. So yeah. Number 3. That's 3, right?
That was number 3, yeah.
274,000 occurrences on this little guy here. Well, how do you prevent injection? Well, making sure that the database is up to date, making sure that you use some sort of firewall, so web application firewalls, right? Making sure that your URLs are sterilized so people can just put any strings in there and create something, right, like malicious and as a pop-up. Also stop using characters like some special characters that are inducive to creating cross-site scripting. That is very important, right? So all of these ways to fix the code, you need to have them in there when you're developing. If you go in there and then you put a URL and it's not sterilized, you're going to get something from the web application right away, right? So very important from both the application side and also the server side, because the server needs to be sterilizing URLs for sure. All right. So number four, and maybe this is something that Gladstone can talk about: secure design. I mean, you're controlling, or not controlling, but you're supervising and you're managing all of the developers in our company. What is insecure design?
Okay, so insecure design, it's a broad category representing weaknesses, in ineffective control and design. So that basically is, involves a lot of planning on the developer side and best practices. So things that we do here at Be Wired is we ensure that plugins and modules that we use and integrate into our websites, we're monitoring them. We're testing them to make sure that they aren't going to break and that they aren't outdated. So at least twice a month, we do updates, security updates, to ensure that these elements that we're using in the back end haven't deprecated. And we do core updates to ensure that there isn't any vulnerabilities that these hackers can exploit.
Well said. Well said.
Nice.
Yeah, security, insecure design. So, like if you have a monolithic application, so what that means is just one page has all the JavaScript, all the information, all the stuff. And then you need to repeat that, and you create that. It's really old school, right? So and it's prone to a lot of vulnerability. So in the design of your code, whatever method you're using needs to be properly secure. So best practice, as Gladstone is alluding to, is so important in your design. So when you're starting to like create the code and all of that. So yeah, so implementation. It's all about implementation, man. Yeah. Any questions out there? Did we lost? Do we have people online? Do we have anybody that can say hi, and it's not asleep right now? If you have any questions, if you have any shout outs, send them to us. Don't fall asleep. We're trying to keep you awake. I know this is sometimes, it might be not the best and most energetic and upbeat topic, but if you have any questions.
Well, I think you've spoiled the audience now, Dan, with your giveaways. So now they're not responding unless you're giving them something. You need to.
There you go. And
Okay.
You know what? I don't know if
All
they're
right.
falling asleep, but you're certainly I know you love this stuff, and it's coming across in your excitement and your expression, because you're definitely passionate about sharing all this information. It's coming across.
Yeah, Michael Wagner.
Michael's wide awake.
He's wide awake.
Nice.
Awesome, Michael. We appreciate that you're here and you're actually awake in our talk. So,
okay, it looks like we got some questions. We didn't need any enticement, so that's good. First question here is from James Shillingworth. He says, this is not a question. He says, I can't sleep as you're making too much noise.
Well, I hope that's a good thing, James.
Yeah.
And Tamara is quiet because she's learning.
She's learning. Okay, great. I'm really happy, guys, that you're learning and you're getting some sort of value out of our talk in here. So you're very clear right now. Perfect. Thank you so much. Beautiful. So Miguel Delgado, I know Miguel. He's a really amazing QA manager, and that's he's always involved in doing like security. The security part of your non-functional requirements, right? So the whole security suite of things that you need to do on the QA side, right?
And James is laughing. He says, "Just kidding." Thanks, James. We appreciate the shout out and we appreciate the LOL.
Okay, we have one question actually.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So Diego says, with the passive mode or phase 1 of testing security in OWASP.
Okay, but so Diego is talking about passive mode, or phase 1 of testing security OWASP. Man, you're just throwing me like really curveballs in here. So so now you're making me go back into my little brain library and trying to get what the passive mode. I can't grasp. I don't remember what the passive mode is, and I think of phase one. So I'm not going to answer this question. I'm sorry. If
I
you
think he
let me,
deserves a gift card because he stumped the great guru here.
I know.
Deserves something.
Oh Jesus. Yeah. So yeah, no, I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, we'll
On
have to get back
passive
to you,
mode.
Diego.
I think he's talking about um cross-site scripting. I'm not sure. So, but if anybody knows, then just
Phase one.
comment in there and please help us out because I'm drowning.
Don't worry, we're
But I
here.
do have $10. $10.
There you
Whoever
go.
tells me,
I got $10.
whoever tells me, $10 gift card. One type of security misconfiguration, and hopefully you're going to nail it right on the head. What is the biggest security misconfiguration that happens either with web applications on the application side or the server side? If you can answer that, you get $10, a $10 gift certificate.
Well done, Diego.
Merry Christmas.
All
Happy
right.
holidays.
Okay, so let's move on to number 5.
Yeah, security misconfiguration.
Security misconfiguration. Take it away, Dan.
Yeah. So should we give them 30 seconds just to answer my question and
Sure,
win those $10? Security misconfiguration. Just one. I just need one. There's so many. There's so many problems out there that could happen on a web application.
So while we're waiting, Dan, I know we talked about some cybersecurity threats that have happened recently. Are any of these items that we've covered today, are they the most popular, or have we seen people use these types?
Okay, think about Twitch. What happened to Twitch a month ago when hackers were able to download entire source code? Why did they do that? Ooh, there's a hint in there.
Thinking.
No.
Please put me out by misery, Dan.
Okay. I'm gonna give you. Okay, so look at that.
We have a good question from James too.
Yeah,
We can
so-
talk for some time afterwards for sure.
Okay, so security misconfigurations. What happened to Twitch? You know what? The Git was misconfigured. So the permissions on the Git was misconfigured, and the hackers did a very simple attack on the Git, right? And we're able to download the entire source code of Twitch. So that is massive misconfiguration. Some other misconfigurations that happen all the time, and we see it all the time, is basically errors. Server errors. So like 404 errors, 500 errors, which are server side errors that are using the standard server errors, right? So if you are using, for example, Microsoft IIS, for example, and it shows you the 500 error, and at the very end, it shows you the path of that page, or you're just telling the headers, errors on the headers, for example. That's all misconfiguration, right? So you're telling the hacker, hey, this is what I'm using. This is the tools that I'm using. I'm using PHP 5.6. It's right there on the header. Hack me. You know what I mean? Those are really bad stuff that happens when you're misconfiguring the way the application is displaying. Yeah. So that's it.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, so we do have some interaction here. So Alexis Ramirez, I think he's responding to your question. He says incorrect file permissions.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Right?
All right. So yeah. And you know what? I think what happens is that when you're in the local server, right? So you're developing the code, and then you're changing, shown, or you're changing your schmod, right? So you're changing permissions and ownership of files. And then in order for you to work on those, if you're in root, for example, or you are using just your user, and then you send them up, right? You have to be careful, because if you have a 777 permission and you send that to the cloud and to your server, that is going to stick, and that's going to be completely executable online. So make sure that you're not able to do that, and you're working with the least level of permissions locally. So when you pass them over, and especially when you're doing a transfer of folders with recurring, right? So -R, you're setting the permissions for not just the one folder that you are uploading, but every subfolder and file that goes beyond that, right? So if you're dealing with like a Linux application, make sure that your file permissions are set properly, 775 for folders, and 664 or 660 for all your files, right? So especially take care of your configuration files, right? So if you have your config where you have the database information, make sure it's always set to 600 possible if you can't do that, right? So that is very important.
All right.
Dan, we're on number 5, and we have about 10 minutes left in our podcast. So we need to go through them a little quicker. Also, James has a question, but maybe what we'll do is, Gladstone, just keep James's to the very end so we can answer out, because I think it's something that he's looking for a quick explanation for something. So we can go to number 6.
Yeah. So number 6 is vulnerable and outdated components. How many times you upload or you use libraries that are obsolete, or libraries that are outdated? And this happens and sometimes the client doesn't understand. They think that websites are forever, right?
Right.
You create a website for them or an application, and then there's no maintenance. You just go on with life, and then all of a sudden they get hacked, and that's not a good thing, right? So things become vulnerable and outdated very quickly. As you know, Gladstone, maybe you can attest to this.
Oh, yes. You know what? We recently had a project that we just concluded, but this is exactly what we faced. We didn't have any security threats, obviously, because we were still developing it, but just, things were breaking because libraries were outdated. It was built like 10 years ago, and then we were building on top of that. So now, even though we have very proficient, smart people working on it, the libraries were so old that they didn't know where it was up and down. So we had to, basically relearn everything and then apply new technology. So yeah, this this is very critical, even in development, not just cybersecurity or vulnerabilities in terms of any applications. So I see this quite often, but yeah, it's good to keep abreast of any changes in the industry, keep learning developers, and just keep expanding your wheelhouse, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So vulnerable and outdated components is very, very important. Websites become obsolete all the time. Code becomes obsolete. New versions of server code, programming languages, also libraries and JavaScripts and stuff like that. They every so often, very quickly, they become outdated. So you need to make sure that you're on top of that. So there's got to be some sort of maintenance program and updating programs in there, right? So number 7, any questions out there? We have a question from James. James is he says, what does he say?
Okay, so James says, do you have a nice, easy explanation of SAS, DAST, IAST, RASP, so that they can be easily conveyed to execs and CEOs?
Yeah, what he's talking is basically SAST and DAST are very the kind of like the typical security application testing, right? So he's talking about the static and dynamic application testing, right? So that's SAST and TAST, and SAST is basically let's talk about DAST first. DAST is dynamically. So when you're producing code, you include in your unit testing, right from the unit testing, and when you're developing and QA, it's dynamically, right? So you are doing the security testing as you go, right? So it's super important. I think that is the best technology or standard to use, right? However, what happens is when you introduce that into right at the beginning of the process, you're duplicating work. You're duplicating a lot of the work. So the time, your sprints might be longer. Your development cycles might be longer because you are dynamically testing for security vulnerabilities and all of this. So it's good. It's one of the best, but it might not be conducive to finishing your project on time. Right now, the static component of that is when you don't test at the source level, but you can test afterwards through an iterative process after the sprint. So it's more static, it's not dynamic. You run your tools or whatever, but there you leave a little bit of time. So that is kind of, it's faster. However, it's not as good, right? So SAST is not as good. So you have to measure speed of development with the quality of the development. But anyways, if you use SAST or DAST, they're still good measures. Absolutely. Like if you
how
don't
do you
use any
explain?
of these,
How does he explain it to an executive real quick? Does he like what's the fundamental of the question is how do you explain this to an executive?
I think for that maybe James, if you could reach out to us and
hey,
we
I
can
would love
maybe
to.
finish
Yeah,
this
absolutely. I can
offline.
give
I
you
think-
a bit more information about SAST and all the other ones, because we got to move on. We only have like 10 minutes in here, and we are only on number 7. So yeah, I hope that helped, James. If not, just reach out to me, and then we'll definitely talk. I love to talk about all of this stuff. I pretty much breathe this and eat it for breakfast.
All right.
Thanks
So I
for the
think this
comment,
calls
James.
for a part
Next
2
one.
of this show since we're pressed for time. So moving on to number 7, identification and authentication failures.
Yeah, so this is very, very similar to authentication, or the number, I think it was, where was it? Broken access control. The only difference is that you're giving people the wrong level of access, right? So
The
the
roles.
yeah, so it all has to, this has to do with your list. So with your with your I forgot, sorry.
Permissions and roles.
Your
Pretty much.
list, yeah, of permissions, right? So authentication at the, when you are on the let's say login page, you try to authenticate but you go to something else completely different, right? So that will be an authentication failure, right? Identification has to do with the person, right? So who are you giving permissions to, right? So it happens a lot of times when you're building applications and you have different group levels, right? And your CTL, you set up your CTL and you're giving the wrong permissions to the wrong people, because there's a lot of configuration that goes on the back end, right? So you are configuring, either if you have a UI for that, or you're doing it through the code, and then you happen to give registered users some authority on, or permissions on admin level, but you don't notice that. You just do it, and then a registered user is like, oh, I can change this, boom, and he does it. So those are definitely identification problems, right? So you need to make sure that you have your list properly designed with ownership, and then permissions, features. You have to create some sort of static Excel sheet with all of those, right? So that's identification and authentication failure.
Perfect.
All right.
And Gladstone, I noticed that we have a few more questions, but let's get through to number 10, guys. And I apologize if we don't get to your questions. It's just because we are very short of time today. And we just want to be able to get to the top 10. So if we can go on to number 8, that's great. And we really appreciate all the questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Number
So
8.
this was insecure deserialization, was part of insecure deserialization, right? But that includes DDoS attacks, by the way, right? So you're sending SYN-ACK or SYN-ACK or HTML floods, and you're doing some sort of DDoS attack on a server or on a website using let's say an error 500 on the server side. So the server's coming back and it's doing hiccups and like, oh, I don't know what this is, and it is showing an error 500. You can attack that through a DDoS attack, and then bring down the server through whatever method of DDoS you're doing. That's insecure deserialization. That was added to this, which is called now software and data integrity, right? So making sure that software updates, you don't make assumptions of software updates, right? This is a very key component, because there's a full sense of security. Absolutely, 100%. So, okay, so you see, for example, there's an update on a software piece, or an update on a Drupal or WordPress or whatever application you're working with. There's an update. You do the update, but you don't know whether that update is actually secure or not. That comes from the vendor, right? So So there's a full sense of security that actually when you're doing the updates, there's going to be security. You have to be careful that it is secure what you're doing. And not only that, but you have to test for that, because remember, when you do updates, you fix one thing, but you break 3 different things, right? So it happens all the time.
All
and
the time, absolutely.
So you can actually, it could be detrimental for your application, because you can actually introduce more vulnerabilities by doing the updates. So, so software and data integrity, its failures are very common out there. So
this just happened to one of our big projects, actually, Dan, not too long ago. That it was something we looked at it, and it opened up the Pandora's box to lots of other problems. So, and it took us a long time to resolve. So it's a really big thing to be concerned of. No question.
Absolutely. What's the next one?
Number 9, security logging and monitoring failures.
Yes. Make sure that in your logs, I mean, they all come, like you get access logs, you had error logs, Apache logs, whatever logs. You need to be logging everything, because you can always go back and then fix things. It will help you quite a bit. Not only logging, but monitoring. Make sure you have tools in there for doing scanning, right? So file change scanning. It's very important. Introductions of or code change scanning. So as soon as a code is changed, or a file is introduced, or something like that happens, you're able to monitor those things. There are a lot of tools like Forgery. It's one of our vendors. They have a really good scanning and monitoring tool. So they scan every 6 hours. They scan the entire application, and they do continuous monitoring if files are introduced, and they're able to actually ding or check mark whatever is changed. If there's something anomalous, they will right away send you a notification saying, hey, this file is not supposed to be here. It's weird. It's an attack. And then you can fix that. So monitoring is so important. Notifications are so important for this. All right.
Number 10, drum roll.
Oh, number 10,
server-side request forgery.
Yeah, this is one of the top. I mean, it is top. It's number 10. It's not as common, but we see it all the time. Server-side request forgery. So trying to get into the server and in tricking the server to opening backdoors, for example, or to doing RCE, so remote execution into servers, and being able to get in there and create, for example, cloaking, or create the adware links, and introducing malware into the server through server-side request forgery is a huge component. So make sure that your servers are always up to date. So, all right. So we have 3 minutes for questions. I hope this is very helpful, guys. I enjoy this so much, and I hope you enjoy it too. I hope that you get a lot of benefit from all of this. So are there any questions?
Yeah, we got a couple. So Tamara asks, I noticed that not all websites limited failed login attempts. Should this not be standardized?
Yes. 3 strikes and you're out. I mean, that's annoying. That's annoying. It is annoying as heck, because it happens to me too, right? So after 3 tries, you're blocked. Your IP is blocked. But there's other mechanisms where it gives you a little bit of time. So I really like iPhones, and the way they do it is they started a long time ago. I know this is not web, but it does convey to the message very well. So you enter your login information, and nope. Then again, nope. Then the third time, it gives you 30 seconds where you can enter. Then the next time is going to give you 60 seconds of wait time, and then the next one is going to be 10 minutes, and so on, until there's a like a hard stop where you're completely blocked, and then you have to contact somebody to be able to get in. So things like that, I think they're very, very important. Also, when you're developing code, guys, when you're developing the backend, make sure that there is a rate limiting. Rate limiting is very helpful on web development, because if there's a hacker trying to do brute force entry, and he's doing his Hydra Linux or John the Ripper or whatever tool they're using to try to hack, they're going to start pinging the login very quickly, right? So username, password. Imagine this doing this like 100,000 times per hour, right? If you don't have some sort of rate limiting, then they might be able to get to be successful logging into the application. So what you have to do is make sure you have rate limiting. So when they do this, they start attacking. They try to do this. They start to do the brute force intrusion. You put a little delay in there, even if it's a 5-second delay. You put a 5-second delay, and that hampers the entire brute force attack by quite a bit. So it is not 100,000 times per hour. It's only 500 times per hour. And if you limit it more, then it's less, right? So if you're not able to stop the brute force attack for whatever reason, I mean, I would totally blacklist any IP addresses. But hackers are smart; they can spoof IP addresses, right? So if they're doing that, then your only option is to rate limit. Then do it. It's a very good an important aspect of security. So very good question, Tamara. Thank you so much. Anybody else?
Yes, and this is the last question from Adrian Perez. How to detect false links that can steal money from us?
Oh, that's a good one. The monitoring tools detect that. So it is, if you don't have a monitoring tool, it might be very hard to detect it. You have to go into your error logs, look at your error logs, look at the URLs that are being hit to be able to detect false links. And what he's talking about is like maybe cloaking, maybe he's talking about bad links, creation of web pages with false information and stuff like that, right? So look at your error logs. Absolutely, put a monitoring tool that will alert you right away when something happens. When you see false links, that's kind of like you're already hacked, right? However, if you're talking about somebody in the world, use DNS filtering. So in our case, for example, in our company, we use DNS filtering for that. So you can see here web root filtering, and if there's a bad link, there's going to be a block page. All right. So if you're a user, use definitely web filtering. If you're a developer, look at your logs. Anyways, so that's about it, man.
Thanks, James.
Oh, thank you so much, James. We appreciate. So next week, we have to drop off too because we have a meeting at 1:00. So we gotta go. But next week, guys, is going to be our holiday special, Christmas special, Kwanzaa special, whatever you want to name it, Hanukkah special,
live from our office, and
yes, live from our office. It's and we're gonna have a lot of fun. So don't miss it. Next Friday, 12:00, live, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Be there or be a Scrooge.
A Scrooge.
All right, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.